Broadcasting from the heart of the nation, the next generation in conservative talk radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Why, yes it is. What is up, my friends? Welcome into it. It is a Friday. Hey, you made it, my friends, to the Friday, the end of the week. Pat yourself on the back. It's, the greatest day of the week. We celebrate. You see the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully you're already done for the week as well. You get to enjoy before these shenanigans pick back up again all over again because, well, it's been a wild week. So let's celebrate. What do you say? Welcome into it. It is the Voice of Reason. I'm Andy Hoosier, broadcasting right here in the heart of the nation in Wichita, Kansas. But we are all over the country, multiple stations. Sorry, I am so distracted right now. I'm reading these headlines and the media losing their minds, of course, like usual. No surprise here about the tariffs and how the economy's going. And then you see these other smaller headlines where it's like, oh, the United Kingdom already seeking a new trade deal with the United States.
Say what?
Oh, wait a second. Here's another one. Australia seeking a new trade deal with the United States.
Say what?
I know. So while we hear about the stock market crashing, we hear about this end of the world doomsday that Donald Trump's doing with this Liberation Day and the tariffs and how bad everything is, we're already just, 2 days into the new tariffs that the Trump administration getting phone calls from these other countries and saying, hey, let's meet, let's set a new trade deal, let's lower our tariffs that we have on your products, and let's come up with a better relationship. That's what the whole purpose of these are. So, I'm sorry, I thought this was going to crash the economy and cause a Great Depression and jack up inflation and how we're just going to ruin all our relationships, just like in the first administration when they said that calling the North Korean leader Rocket Man was going to lead to World War III. And then we saw for the first time in history a president actually set foot into North Korea or right at that line and meet with the North Korean leader because we strengthened our relationship because we weren't going to take any crap from anybody else. What a concept. So, yeah. Already we're seeing nations, Vietnam apparently, speaking of, has also announced that they are now going to be getting rid of all the tariffs on U.S. imports to a 0% as they look to what? Renegotiate a new trade deal. So, oh mon Dieu, look at that. Wow. We got to do it again. Sorry. So that's where we start the day off today on a Friday. Welcome into it, and it's so great to have you along. Bottom of the hour, we have Andrew Handel. He is with the American Legislative Exchange Council. We will chat with him about the ending of the Department of Education and how scary that is as we end the DOE and what that means for higher education and K through 12 across the nation. Also, I do want to play a clip. We're going to air the full interview on our local program tomorrow here in the local market of Wichita. But with Congressman Tracy Mann, the big first district of Kansas, we sat down with him to talk about these trade deals, talk about immigration, and a heck of a lot more, because it is impacting especially the agricultural sector, which is what he's part of, and part of that ag committee in Washington, D.C. So we sat down with him briefly to talk about all of these issues and more as the tariffs were going into effect and what that could mean for so many different industries. And I think it's important for us to understand for the food industry, especially with countries like, Australia, where Australia has been importing a lot of their beef into the U.S., like the Wagyu beef that you enjoy. Yeah, that's from Australia, but they've had such a high tariff on U.S. beef that they've actually blocked it, and we've never been able to import it, at least for the last 10 years or so. What does that all mean and more? We sat down with Congressman Tracy Mann from the big first district of the state of Kansas to talk about this and so much more. Congressman, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm good. Appreciate you. Appreciate your friendship. Appreciate all that you're doing. A lot to talk about. Hey, big picture, exciting 7 days we've had. It's amazing to think the month before last, Joe Biden was still president of the United States, which is crazy to think about. But we're in a much better place. Have a lot of work to do as we get the train back on the tracks.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. We were just talking a little bit about the first 2 months of the Trump administration, and it's not only been busy for the White House with the 300-plus executive orders and the announcements. We just went into Liberation Day this week as well with the new tariffs and new trade deals and negotiations. But you in Congress as well, you guys have been working nonstop just to keep up with the Trump administration. How does it feel for the first time really ever to see Washington, D.C. move as quickly as what it has been?
It's fantastic. I'm from the business world, but to see, us make some progress on the things we've been needing to do for years is great. When I look at the last election, Andy, President Trump ran on a lot of things, House Republicans as well. But really, if you're going to boil it down, it was to, one, secure the border, number one issue in the election. Number two, we need to get the economy back on track by reducing inflation. Then you do that by shrinking the size of the government. Enter Doge, stamping all this waste, fraud, and abuse, tens, hundreds of billions of dollars. And number three, the president said he was going to use tariffs to renegotiate our trade relationships with the world. And promises made, promises kept. Credit President Trump for doing exactly what he said he's going to do. And that's really, in essence, what we've seen the last 70 days out of the administration. Record low border numbers. They just released the border crossings for the month of March. Yep. Record low. We're down 96% from where it was under Joe Biden. And that's just leadership, right? I mean, Biden said for years that we needed Congress to act. Turns out, no, we need a new president that actually enforces the laws. And there we go, and America's better for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't want to spend too terribly much time on these tariffs, but like you said, I mean, with the Liberation Day, this reset of the economy that we're seeing is unbelievable. The cutting of public sector jobs, getting people back into the private sector, cutting investments and grants and so on and so forth from the government for the private sector to pick that up and actually absorb it, for the tariffs that are happening with negotiation and trade deals that we're seeing. This is unbelievable to see the change already. And even though it's, shaky right now with the stock market, the fact that we're seeing this is going to be long-term benefits of the government getting out of the way and letting the private sector do what private sector things they do. And this is going to be huge moving forward.
It is. And it's common sense. And it's also America first. You get into this and realize we've been taken advantage of for far too long around the world. Credit President Trump for taking action here. But, it's a good thing. We have a lot of work to do. One of the reasons the last 7 days have been so busy is because of the absolute mess that President Biden left. Yeah. And there's so much work to do. A lot of it's been done. There's a lot left to do, though, as well, Andy.
Yeah, there really is. You mentioned the immigration stuff. I know you focus a lot of attention and time on that. You've been to the border and seeing a lot of the things going on down there with record low people coming across the border now. Congressman, I thought we needed a bill from Congress to make that happen. I thought, according to Biden and Kamala Harris, we needed Congress to act on that because they were helpless. They couldn't do anything to try and slow down the border crossings going on. And yet, within 2 months of a Trump administration enforcing the law and passing executive orders, we're now down 98, 97%.
No, that's right. But here's what we need Congress to do, Andy. We need Congress to codify the actions that President Trump has taken to make sure that a future president can't come in and do what President Biden did. 16 million illegal crossings just because they didn't care and wanted to see it happen. We've got to take action legislatively as well to come behind the president and make sure that the damage that was done to the country never, ever happens again. And then we got to deal with the mess that we're left with, specifically, deporting violent felons, criminals that are in our country. That process is well underway, but we have a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. At the same time, I know you guys have been working on with the SAVE Act. It's been a big conversation. We're coming out of Women's History Month, Donald Trump signing executive orders to end DEI, and now we're focused on this immigration as well with the SAVE Act, making sure that wild concepts, Congressman, we have non-citizens that aren't voting in elections across the nation because many states, and ironically mostly deep blue states, have some sort of law where they don't have to show ID or anything to go and vote. Kind of weird to me. Where are we at with this conversation? And do you think that this is going to change a whole lot of election outcomes in the country?
Common sense. We passed the SAVE Act in the House last fall, September, October. So I think it was September. It never moved in the Senate. Now we're working to pass it. I think it's going to come up for vote next week. I will strongly support it. Remarkable to me that it looks like every Democrat is going to vote against the SAVE Act, which means every Democrat is saying they are okay with non-U.S. citizens voting in our elections. I mean, just let that sink in, Andy. It's just hard to wrap your brain around. A lot of lies, a lot of things circulating out there that just aren't true. There are those that would say it's already illegal to vote in the election if you're not a citizen. That's true, but what the SAVE Act does, it provides for enforcement. Remember, it's illegal to come into the country, if you're not permitted, but it happens 16 million times under Biden.
Right.
So we've got to make sure that we have the teeth, not just what the law says, but you have to have the enforcement teeth to make sure that only United States citizens are voting in our U.S. elections.
which is common sense. I mean, the one curriculum, Congressman, in the Constitution, the one stipulation that it says in order for you to vote is for you to be a U.S. citizen and for you to be abiding by the jurisdiction of the laws of the U.S. That's it. And then it's up to the states to decide how they're going to enforce that. But that's the one curriculum that you have that you're supposed to vote. And yet that's the one where Democrats, for whatever reason, try to balk and push against that as much as they can. It blows my mind that they're not in trouble for that.
It does, and you have to ask yourself why. Like why are they so against it? Why when Pelosi was the speaker, some really tough, dark days. Their number one bill, HR 1, House Resolution 1, was to federalize our elections.
Yeah.
Why? Because they wanted to weaken all of these federal, voting laws that protect and safeguard our elections. Why discrepancy among states and how they're implementing these things? But at the end of the day, passing the SAVE Act will help to make sure there's enforcement mechanisms so that only U.S. citizens, lo and behold, are voting in our elections, which is as American first, but more than it's just common sense as it gets around here.
Yeah, amen to that. We're talking with Congressman Tracy Mann, the big first district here in the state of Kansas. Let's shift gears a little bit, kind of back to the tariffs, but I really want to talk about the agricultural trade because they have been, quote unquote, concerned about some of the tariffs, the exports of meat. Trump has made the statement that we want to actually, sell our meat and our agricultural products here in the United States, along with working with the new health departments with RFK Jr., which has been phenomenal watching him as well work with local agricultural leaders, bring from the meat and to the farm, from the farm right to the table there locally, working with local schools across the nation. This seems like a great idea of, again, revitalizing the agricultural community, which I know you're heavily involved with, to actually bring the food from the farm to the table in your local community. Why didn't we do this before?
Well, realize first off, President Trump loves farmers.
Yeah.
Repeatedly said that first time I was in the Oval Office, Andy, very first thing he talked to me about when we were talking about Kansas, how much he loves farmers, appreciated them, expressed his support for agriculture for farmers from the State of the Union, which never happened under President Biden. Realize the situation that we're in. So when President Trump left office a little over 4 years ago, we had a $3.5 billion ag trade surplus, meaning we're exporting $3.5 billion more than what we're importing. Joe Biden and the Biden administration did nothing on the trade front. They just sat back, let us take advantage of. So, which means when Trump came into office 70 days ago, we have a $50 billion agriculture trade deficit.
Wow!
Which means we go from exporting $3.5 billion more than we are bringing in to we're bringing in $50 billion more in ag products than what we're sending out. So we have got to have American first ag trade policies and get to a level playing field with countries so we can continue to export our products. We know full well that when farmers can compete on a level playing field, we do it better than anybody.
Yep.
So let's level that playing field. That's exactly what President Trump's trying to do to get our ag economy to a better place for the long haul.
What a wild concept. That's Congressman Tracy Mann from the Big First District. Again, that's just a sliver of the interview. We're going to do more of that. You can find it with our podcast, which you can find at The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on any of your favorite podcasting sites. That'll be tomorrow as we air more of that on our local program here in the Wichita, Kansas area. But it's a great conversation, especially with that ag, because agricultural imports, exports are a huge aspect of this tariff. And guess what? Already starting to see that change, already starting to see that reset and those better communications with foreign nations. Wow, what a concept. Couldn't have saw that coming.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. When reason meets radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Remember, during the first Trump administration, everybody said that Trump's tariffs were going to be inflationary back then. What actually happened? We had 1.5% inflation. We had the fastest growing economy in a generation, and we had the beginning of a manufacturing renaissance in the United States of America. Then, of course, we had 4 terrible years of the Biden administration. But I think it's useful for all of us to step back and ask ourselves, what has the globalist economy gotten the United States of America? And the answer is fundamentally it's based on 2 principles: incurring a huge amount of debt to buy things that other countries make for us. And to make it a little bit more crystal clear, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. That is not a recipe for economic prosperity. It's not a recipe for low prices, and it's not a recipe for good jobs in the United States of America.
I know this is kind of a rhetorical question, but I still have to ask it because I know all of us are probably thinking it at the same time. But how in the world did we allow ourselves to get to the point that we're at right now by using that analogy that J.D. Vance just mentioned during that interview, that we borrow money from the country that we're buying the cheap products from, and then they stink because they're low quality products because they just use them in a very cheap manner. And then we borrow the money from them in order to buy their product from them, and then we have to pay that money back because they're buying our debt. My brain hurts with how ridiculous that we've allowed our society to be. This is why we've seen historically throughout all of humanity, we've seen these societies collapse. We've seen them just collapse upon themselves because they thought that they didn't care, that we can just print the money, it's not going to matter, we can just raise inflation, we can just sell off our debt with bonds, we can do whatever we want to, it's not going to matter, we just need to live in the here and the now and artificially inflate the nation to make it look like it's really good, and obviously that's not working. So this reorganization, this restructuring, I've told you this analogy before because it's the best one that I really know how to describe it. With an economy is when you inject it through printing money and injecting it into the economy, it's creating those air bubbles and like the brake lines, right? The brake fluid that you have. And that's when your brakes stop working because you have air bubbles in them. We are getting rid of all of the air bubbles right now. And that's why we're seeing this massive reset in the economy and with the stock market because we are readjusting completely. We're not going to be taken advantage of. We're not going to be abused on the global market. And he's right. What has the global market actually done for us in benefit of us? It started off really well. And then, well, they're going to raise the tariffs on U.S. imports. Well, okay, I guess we'll go ahead and do that. And then, we're just going to block your products from coming in. Well, okay, I guess so. Then we're going to come in and we're going to buy their products, but we're not going to have any tariffs on it? And the globalists, the deep staters, they're like, well, we can't change that system or else they will come back and harm us. That's not the case. In fact, big news of the day today.
What's trending today?
On top of multiple countries wanting to come out and actually start renegotiating and creating new trade deals for us in the United States, we also have the payroll job creation for the month of March. Now, to put this into perspective, Donald Trump took effect and swore in on January 20th, like the end of the month of January. February was just getting his feet wet, signing all the mass executive orders, starting the transition of this nation. The second full month of the Trump administration being in office, he saw a record 228,000 jobs being created for the month of March. That was up from the anticipation of 117,000. That was the revised anticipation with their estimates going up to even 140,000. And we knocked it out of the park with 228,000. This is the beginning. This is not the full effect of the Trump administration and the Trump economy, but this is the beginning of that. Already for springtime, obviously, there would be a slight increase of jobs being created, but the estimates from the media, the estimates from the financial experts did not expect it to be that high because they said that the uncertainty that Trump has created by shaking up the government, the Department of Government Efficiency, the tariff conversations, the foreign relations that we've had, that they said it would be completely uncertain of what it would look like at the federal level and would not expect that businesses would be growing. Yet the private sector still understood what Donald Trump was doing. We know what's going on, and we see the benefit of what we're doing and the potential that we have with a new economy under Donald Trump.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. Truth, reason, and common sense. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Yeah, truth, reason, common sense, rationale. It's what we do on this program, especially on a Friday. Pat yourself on the back. You finally made it, setting that tone for the weekend. You scream, I scream, we all scream for ice cream. Although, as you know, you've been waiting for it. It's not officially National Ice Cream Day. That would be the day that Joe Biden officially dropped out of the presidential race last year. Yeah. we're not going to let that one down. Welcome back into the program. All right. As you know, big things happening in D.C. right now. We have the tariff conversation going on with now nations already, the United Kingdom, Australia, both of them wanting to come back and seek a new trade deal with the Trump administration. The nation of Vietnam also saying that they're going to be dropping their tariffs on U.S. imports to zero. So 2 days in, and the panic and the scare and the pandemonium, man, of, oh my gosh, he's going to crash the economy.
We're all going to die because of you!
Already leading to renegotiations and stronger trade deals and stronger relationships with many of these nations. Go figure, right? At the same time, the media cannot keep up with the speed of the Trump administration and which part of what he's working on to be angry about at one particular time. That leads us to our latest trending story of the day.
What's trending today?
And, of course, the ongoing transition of the closing of the Federal Department of Education. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my God, no.
I know. And what are we going to do when we actually see the DOE go away and we see power come down to the state levels and the grants and the money and everything else be transitioned to other federal agencies? To talk about that, really happy to have back on the program. Been a little bit since we've chatted with them. He's with the American Legislative Exchange Council, also known as ALEC. Really happy to have back on here, Andrew Handel. Andrew, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back on, Andy.
Yeah, appreciate the chat with you. Looking forward to it. This is exciting. For the first time, and I said this a while back, this is a monumental feat because I don't remember the last time any governmental agency, really in any nation since the beginning of really mankind, to actually downsize themselves and cut out their federal bureaucracy and say, you know what, we don't need to do this any longer. We're going to get out of the way and let education do its thing. This is kind of a monumental moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a historic moment. It's something that, the states have been clamoring for this for, I would say decades. This is something we've been working on for a very, very, very long time. So we're really excited to see it. I mean, you think about it, the Department of Education doesn't, they're not responsible for teaching a single student out there. The states are the ones that are responsible for that. So, we'd much rather have the states in charge of this and have the states guiding what education policy looks like for themselves.
Let's talk about the point that led up to this. Obviously, it's been a bit of a struggle. Donald Trump tried to sign an executive order a while back that would completely get rid of or at least gut the Department of Education. Then he held off, and then he did the slow transition and started cutting down some of the staff. And then he finally signed the one that said he was going to transition it to be essentially zero with this movement of structuring downward and moving and passing things on to either other agencies or down to those statewide levels. Andrew, why has it been such a difficult process to do this? I know it's a major, huge agency at the federal level, obviously, but why has it been so difficult to make this transition?
Yeah, I think the biggest reason is, you can't actually close the Department of Education unless you get an act of Congress.
Yes.
It's something that's going to take a pretty lengthy bill, to go through all of those different programs and appropriations and authorities that Congress has over time given to the Department of Education, and you've got to, strip those back and move them to other agencies. So, but, I think this time around, the Trump administration seems, very serious about, getting this done. We've seen the moves that they've been making to enhance efficiency across government. They've cut the staff at the Department of Education by 50%. So, they're definitely looking to make operations leaner and, find those efficiencies and give authority right back to the states where it belongs.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. And, of course, now Congress is working on it. I know Congressman Thomas Massey has a bill, a few others as well, that have bills presented to officially end and stop funding the Department of Education that hopefully can go through in this next federal budget in 2026. That being said, let's talk about the transition of the power down to the states having the authority to really disperse the funds they need to and give different curriculum that they need to. What is this going to look like at a state level now that they're getting this power? Is this the State Board of Education? Are they going to the local school districts? I mean, how is this going to look moving forward?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's something that they're still formulating. I mean, where I think it's going to end up is we're going to take all of these different funds and appropriations that Congress has put out there, and we're just going to bundle them together and block grant it out to the states. So doing that gives the states a lot more flexibility. It just means it's one single grant that the department sends over to the states, and then they get to determine how best to spend that money on various education services. So they could spend it on a school choice program. They could spend it on expanding charter schools. They could spend it on special education services. They could spend it on, free and reduced price lunches. Whatever they think is best, they're going to be empowered to direct those funds, to whatever extent works best for them. And, the best way I can put it is, what works best for people in California probably isn't going to work best for people in Florida, right? So, that's why it's so important to make sure that states are the ones in charge. They're the ones that fundamentally know what will work best for their communities.
Well, it's the way it should have been in the first place. I mean, I don't know why we got to the level of what we did, allowing the federal government to micromanage every single state. That's kind of crazy to me, but that's the way we've kind of dealt with it. Now, the argument and the concern from others that don't like this idea have been, like you mentioned, some of the grants for higher education or grants for special education or certain particular areas of K through 12 school. And they've said that they're not sure where this is going to come from. Now, you're saying it's all going to go as a lump sum to the state, and then the state can disperse it how it needs to based on their own individual needs, which would make sense. But let's talk about like higher education for just a moment, with them getting rid of in grants for this research study or this program or that program. Is it going to be essentially the same thing, or are those going to maybe the Department of Commerce or the Treasury Department or somewhere else where it's still going to be managed, but just not through the Department of Education?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's going to be determined on a case-by-case basis. There's certain things that come to mind, like, Title I funding for disadvantaged communities, special education funding, free and reduced price lunches. Those are all programs that obviously they're not going to get rid of. The funding is not going to be affected for those. But if they are successful in closing the department and sending all this authority back to the states, then you'll see those programs be transitioned into other places. So, we've already seen the administration say that, special education, they want to send over to HHS, Health and Human Services, under Secretary Kennedy. Yeah. They've also said that the student loan portfolio they would send over to the Small Business Administration. So, I think we're already seeing the administration thinking through, what are the priority programs and where are we going to send those so that they can be run more efficiently.
Do you think that states are going to be communicating with one another better on what's working, what's not working in education? Right now, I'm assuming they're talking a little bit, but right now with getting so many mandates from the federal government, that if they have the sole power to decide what they're going to do in the classroom on a state level, I'm assuming, at least I would hope, that we would be talking on a state-to-state basis on, hey, this works really well over here. Maybe you should try this. Hey, maybe this program works over here. We should try this. And I'm assuming that we could have maybe better communication on a state-to-state level.
Sure, yeah, and I think the states already are communicating really well. That's exactly what we do here at ALEC. We have state lawmakers as a part of our membership, and we bring all those lawmakers together, and we'll have folks from West Virginia talk about the Hope Scholarship Program there, which is a universal education scholarship account program that's seeing tremendous results. And, we can hear from them and explain, why this works and, what are the things that you have to think about when you're building these programs and implementing them. So I think states are already communicating really well, and, that's why having this enhanced flexibility is even more important, right? Because we don't want these one-size-fits-all mandates coming down from the federal government. We want to make sure that states and local communities are empowered to guide this funding towards whatever is going to best help their students achieve future success.
What a wild concept. We're talking with Andrew Handel. He's with the American Legislative Exchange Council, also known as ALEC. As we talk about these states having the ability, this partners as well with the executive orders that were signed by the Trump administration on National School Choice Week, but advocating for national school choice, signing the executive order to allow it, with the states also having more power in their own education. Do you think, or are you optimistic this is going to lead to more states opening up more of that competition, allowing more school choice, or at least some type of open enrollment style within their own states?
I think it definitely will. We actually just saw earlier this week on Monday, the Department of Education released a letter to all the state superintendents of education, in response to President Trump's executive order that he signed during National School Choice Week, which essentially asked the Secretary of Education to look at the existing programs within the department, and if there's any flexibility for states to put that money towards school choice, let's let them know about it and let's try to encourage it. So just this past Monday, they got that first letter out the door and told told the states about some existing programs in Title I and some flexibilities that might be there. So we're already seeing, this administration taking, existing law and allowing the states to put more money towards education freedom and school choice. So it's super exciting, and obviously, this is just the first of a couple letters that the department is expected to release over the next couple of months. So we're really excited about it, and you're definitely going to see states, with some more money and more flexibility to expand and create new school choice programs.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, it's only the beginning. We are starting, and we have so much new opportunity for us with the way that we're shaking things up in Washington, D.C. Andrew, hang on the line. We got to take a hard break here. It's Andrew Handel, American Legislative Exchange Council, also known as ALEC. You can find their information on their website, being able to bring the states together and find those best opportunities across the board. When we come back, I want to talk about the graduation rates, the quality of education, and how we can start utilizing this opportunity now to raise those standards. And is it just money driven? Are we throwing money at it and all of a sudden, it works? Or do we need to do something a little bit different? We'll talk about those opportunities and more. One segment left here on a Friday, getting you set for another weekend. It's The Voice of Reason. Stay right here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. America's safe space for common sense. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Darn right it is. What's up? Welcome back into it. We got a couple minutes left here of the program as we wrap things up for the weekend for a Friday. Man, if we had more time, we could go 4 hours on this program. There's so much to talk about, and there is some really crazy news going on right now.
News of the day.
Yeah. Your weird news of the day. We don't have a lot of time to talk on it, but there was a headline that was actually just running on Fox News a little while ago. I got a call from Mark Walters, Armed American Radio, during his commercial break on his radio program a while ago, right before this show started. It said, Andy, have you seen the headline? And sent me a picture of what he saw on his Fox News headline, that Fox was running a story about a declassified file from the CIA about ETs, extraterrestrials, aka aliens, that have pledged to do a complete human massacre because of us shooting down their UFO years ago. Now, I'm just saying, I'm just saying that we're finally talking about this issue. We're going to have to find some time to talk about that a little bit later. So that's a little radio tease for you, and we'll look forward to that. Right now, though, we're talking education. Maybe if we educate more people on ETs, they won't be as scared about it. What do you think, Andrew? Andrew Handel, American Legislative Exchange Council. We need to educate more people on ETs, and therefore we can be prepared. Yeah.
I think that'll do it, Andy. I think that'll do it.
That's right. I love it. I want to ask you, I mean, now that all this conversation about education, which drives me nuts, is always focused around money. How much money we're getting, where the money's going, what money's going to be used for what program. At the end of the day, though, is money really the thing that actually raises the quality of education? Is money really what raises the graduation rates at a certain school? Because we have a buttload of money going to really big school districts, and it seems like they're the ones that continue to struggle the most with the worst graduation rates and with education of like reading curriculum that's at like a 5th grade level when they graduate high school.
Right. Yeah, it is absolutely not all about the money. It is not about how much you're spending. It's about how you're spending it, right? So, you got states like New York who are spending, close to $30,000 per student per year just to teach them in public school. And, they're right smack in the middle of the road in terms of test scores. So it's not about how much money you're throwing at it. Public schools across the country are tremendously well funded. The question is, are you allowing that money to follow students to whatever school is best for them? So, you take a simple, cul-de-sac, for example, right? You might have 5 kids on a cul-de-sac. For 2 kids, their public school is going to be the best fit. For 1 kid, it might be a homeschool. For 1 kid, it might be a virtual school. And then for the 5th kid, it might be a charter school. So, it's not a knock on public schools. There's just no such thing as one school that can possibly provide the best possible education to every kid. So, that's why we've got to have all these other options available. And, I think that's how we're going to get graduation rates up. That's how we're going to get achievement up, and that's how we're going to get test scores up.
Yeah, bingo. I mean, it's not a universal way to teach everybody the same. Every kid is different. Every student learns a different way, whether they're more visual, whether they're more hands-on, or they have that photographic memory. I mean, everybody learns differently, and we've almost forgotten that mindset, I think. We just think that we just need to sit them in the classroom and sit them there for a long period of time. And if they don't do well, sit them there for a longer period of time. And if they still don't do well, then give them Adderall or something to where they pay more attention while they're sitting there for a long period of time and just expect them all to learn the same way. We got to change that mindset. And I'm excited to see what we're going to do moving forward.
Yeah, me too. We're really excited. We're all the way up to 15 states now have these universal school choice programs where every single kid can access this funding and go to any school. So, we're really excited about it. We still got some, potentially a huge program about to be created in Texas. I know legislators in New Hampshire are looking at this as well. So, yeah, lots of great movement on this, and millions of kids around the country are about to benefit from these programs. So it's awesome to see.
That's really cool. Last question for you. We got about 30 seconds left here, Andrew. Micro-schooling of not even using public schools, but just having like the block of students and the parents in that on that street being able to create their own curriculum. Is that a future, and is that an option, do you think?
Oh, it's definitely an option. Yeah, it's definitely an option. It's it's a newer form of learning, I'd say. So it's something that, here at ALEC, we've been studying it. We just released a statement of principles for lawmakers to kind of consult as they're thinking through what these laws are going to look like. I mean, we've heard some crazy stories about, parking regulations, outside of somebody's home that they're now using as a micro school and being told, well, it can't be a micro school because you don't have, 20 parking spaces or something like that. So, so it's a very new thing, and, we're working through some of those weird regulatory issues, but definitely growing in popularity. We're excited about it. Work in progress. I like that. The future of education. It's going to be exciting to see where we land on that one. Andrew, we appreciate it very much, my friend. Keep up the fight. We'll get you back on again real soon. That sounds good. Thanks for having me on. Hey, you bet. Always a pleasure. We'll do it again soon. Until then, be your own voice of reason. Back at it again on Monday. Our syndicated program on Saturday. Make sure to stay tuned in for that. Until then, be your own voice of reason. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on the radio. Bye.